Although it may seem terrifying that President Trump has proposed a new deal to replace NAFTA, it's not as bad as it may seem. This new deal, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, otherwise known as the USMCA, has many provisions in it that would help the United States both economically and as far as trade goes. It's a great step towards bringing jobs back to the United States and increasing tariffs where they need to be increased according to President Trump's plans for tariffs. And it also lets American companies gain more profits. Now, when asking the question, is the new NAFTA deal a significant achievement for President Trump? The answer is yes. For President Trump and what he promised to do during his campaign and has continued to promise to do throughout his presidency, this is a significant achievement because he's following through with things that he has said that he would get done for our country. The three main ways that we can see this as an achievement for the Trump administration is by looking first at how tariffs are kept on Canada and Mexico. However, some tariffs were conceded or reduced to aid in the compromises through this deal. Another way that we can see this as an achievement for the Trump administration is by looking at the fact that there are improvements in the auto sector, and lastly, by looking at American pharmaceutical companies which will profit from this new trade deal. The first way that this can be seen as an achievement for the Trump administration is through the tariffs that will continue to be placed on exports to Canada and Mexico. However, those would be considered as the steel tariffs and other tariffs pertaining to the auto industry. However, the specific tariffs that were covered by the Cato Institute on October 8th are tariffs regarding other trade goods and certain agricultural goods. Now, the Cato Institute sent out a report after the USMCA was proposed and agreed upon by the three representatives from the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and the Cato Institute compared it to the ideal free trade standard. Now, in comparison to the ideal trade deal, this new trade deal is not anything amazing. However, it does fulfill some of the largest and most significant standards which are placed on the ideal free trade agreement. One of those standards is the standard that tariffs will be eliminated as soon as possible and on as many goods as possible. Now, for President Trump, obviously he would not concede to lowering steel tariffs and other tariffs pertaining to the auto industry, but tariffs on goods that already did not have tariffs under NAFTA, under this new deal, will continue to not have tariffs placed on them. In addition, Forbes magazine on October 3rd reported that tariffs on certain agricultural goods, specifically goods pertaining to the dairy market, would be decreased. The Office of the U.S. Trade Representative reported on this new trade deal and specifically talked about dairy products such as cheese and milk, whose tariffs would be lowered on exports between Canada and the United States. The increase in access to the dairy market for Canada and the United States is beneficial in that it allows farmers to profit from the increase in trade. The second way that we can see this as an achievement for the Trump administration is through improvements in the auto industry. According to the New York Times on October 1st of this year, the new trade deal would propose over time that the amount of an individual vehicle that would be made in the United States would increase from where it is currently at 62.5% to 75%. Now, this gradual increase would not only bring jobs back to the United States, but would also mean that the United States would be becoming more self-sufficient in the auto industry, which would then allow U.S. car companies to turn around and place higher export tariffs on the American cars. However, according to the Huffington Post on October 2nd of this year, this new trade deal would not do that, which is good for Canada and Mexico. This new trade deal would, because of the increase in local manufacturing in the United States, would mean that there would be duty-free shipping to Canada and Mexico from American car companies. So despite the fact that car manufacturing would be taken away from Canada and Mexico and brought back to the United States, the fact that there is duty-free shipping would be good so that Canada and Mexico would not have to pay as much for importing American cars. The third way in which we can see this new NAFTA deal as an achievement for President Trump and his administration is through the profits that pharmaceutical companies in the United States will gain from it. According to the New York Times on October 1st of this year, in the same report where they talked about the provisions on the dairy market, they also covered that this trade deal will provide provisions for pharmaceutical companies in the United States that would cause them to not have to give away intellectual information on biologic drugs made in the United States, meaning that pharmaceutical companies in the US would have more time to come up with their own ideas and their own drugs and profit from selling them in Canada and Mexico for up to 10 years, which increases the amount of time that drug companies in Canada and Mexico currently have them to be able to hold their own information. In conclusion, this new NAFTA deal, or the USMCA trade deal, agreed upon by 3 representatives from America, Canada, and Mexico, shows that this is an achievement for President Trump and his administration because it follows through on things that President Trump said that he would get done during his campaign.